Hello there, fellow citizens of the internet. My name is Soul, and before we start today's video, I wanted to thank each and every
1,069 of you.
This is the greatest number any YouTube content creator can strive to get to. 1,069. That's why we grinded for years, so one day I could have a funny number on a YouTube page. Dreams do come true, everybody.
Congratulations!
Now, without further ado, I would like to turn back time. I would like to rewind to a simpler time and tell you about one of my fairy tales that I've grown up with over the years. It is a fairy tale about a high school chemistry teacher, and he finds one of his old students and he says, "Hey, let's make some crystal meth together." And thus began the journey of the pizza throwing man and a guy who wears really baggy clothes and has a really hard obsession with the word bitch.
Bitch, 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 bitch.
And that little enchanting fairy tale became one of the most celebrated television programs of all time. People fucking love Breaking Bad. People love Breaking Bad like I love peanut butter and banana sandwiches. That's to all the poor kids out there. And not only that, it was the right show at the right time. It was still around when TV was still like the big credible beast that it used to be, somewhat sort of, and it would still pop off with ratings, but it was also one of the initial sparks in the fire that created streaming services. Back when Breaking Bad came onto Netflix, it was one of the first things I ever watched on Netflix. And I remember people cutting their cable cords. They're like, I don't gotta ever watch cable ever again. And I'd be like, why? They're like, I got Netflix now. And Netflix has Breaking Bad. What are you gonna watch after Breaking Bad? I don't know. But Breaking Bad is all I need for the rest of my life. Shout out to all my homies who watch nothing but Breaking Bad and nothing else. And a lot of the big beloved shows out there, I'm talking about Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, Breaking Bad stood among them, but was also unique in the fact that it ended before it became a dumpster fire. And that's why to this day, people talk about it. That's why to this day, Breaking Bad is talked about, celebrated, and it still lurks in people's favorites lists. And that's when Vince and the boys over at AMC conjured up their next biggest hit, the prequel series to Breaking Bad, starring shady lawyer Saul Goodman. And I, like a lot of audience members, was very hesitant. Don't get me wrong, I love this universe. I love these characters. I would love nothing more than this universe and these characters to be explored in interesting ways and seeing them develop and maybe see a little bit into the past to kind of get more of a reflective journey upon how they came to be. I would love all that, but I live in Doomsdayville 2022, where everything I once knew and cherished is then fed back into a manufacturing plant onto a conveyor belt where it's fed into me over and over again, and there's sequels on sequels until there's nothing left, and properties that I once had nothing more than beloved, cherished memories with is now a shallowed hell of what it once used to be. And that's why nowadays when I hear the term prequel series, I kind of just associate that with, well, you know, we don't have to do that. But now that Better Call Saul has concluded, all my worries have ended up on poorly aged things, and I can reflect on this show that I've had all these pent-up thoughts about, and I'm gonna spill them all out onto the camera for you. This is Soul's rambling thoughts about Better Call Saul, except for season 1, because I made a video on that when it finished airing, and just don't watch any of my old videos, please. But anyway, seasons 2 through 6, I binged, and when I say I binged, I don't normally binge shows. Like, if my wife can't sit me down and force me to watch something, if I'm watching it by myself like I was for this show, my attention span is not gonna hold. An hour-long TV drama, me watching that by myself, let alone binging it, unheard of. But for whatever reason, with this show, it's like Rock Lee dropped his weighted clothing onto my lap and I was stuck there like a zombie, watching episode after episode of Better Call Saul, and I speed ran this. I took this show to town. I finished Better Call Saul in light speed mode. And so keep that in mind that no, I did not watch this weekly or yearly as it was coming out. I watched this at a much faster pace. Just to get it out the way, I don't think I can properly talk about this show without talking about spoilers, so big red siren emoji, spoilers, big red siren emoji. You've been warned or whatever. Come back after you finish the show. And I guess spoilers for Breaking Bad while you're at it, sure, why not? And just to get the big question out there, the thing I've seen in every Better Call Saul video and in half the comments, is Better Call Saul better than Breaking Bad? No. No, it is not. It also doesn't need to be. What I mean by that is Better Call Saul almost achieves more than Breaking Bad. Like, in a sense, I respect Better Call Saul more than Breaking Bad, because Breaking Bad, it was a masterclass show. It achieved a lot of things, but Vince and the boys, they could have just sat around. They're resting on their laurels. They did it. They created the thing. But the fact that they immediately take one of the characters and make a show almost as impressive as that one, and one with more patience, it's even longer, and it still holds my interest more. That is crazy to me. That is unthinkable. And the fact that it respects me as an audience member, it doesn't just spoon feed me the entire story. And even the final season, they let you kind of interpret things how you want to on certain things. I love that. And in fairness, I've compared a lot of shows to Breaking Bad. Like, Breaking Bad sits at the top of the mountain, and all these soldiers climb up, and Breaking Bad just slaps them down. But Better Call Saul came a lot closer than any of those other shows. And it achieves one of the greatest things a prequel series can do, which is make me appreciate the original more than I already did. For instance, in Breaking Bad, it's a high-paced show. There are a lot of things that happen, and because it has to be wrapped up in this pretty little bow, we don't get a lot of time to reflect on things. We don't get to marinate in the consequences of our actions. For instance, when Hank and Gomez died in Breaking Bad, we were on to the next thing so fast that we didn't really get to revel in that. But now that we see Hank's wife Marie in tears as she talks about the situation, I feel that moment. I now have a new perspective on who she is and where she's been since Breaking Bad. And that's awesome, man. And with a lot of prequel series, we're worried about them, dishonoring the characters, not living up to who they were in the original. But a lot of the characters, Mike, Gus, Hector Salamanca, all these guys, we got to see a lot of them in this show. And I can say with complete certainty that they did them all justice. And a lot of these characters, I'm not going to look at them the same. When I looked at Hector Salamanca, before I just saw an old guy in a wheelchair, but now I saw who he was before that. And that's going to make me appreciate him in a whole new light. And Mike's been my boy, but after Better Call Saul, he's like my favorite character in this whole franchise. I love Mike. Mike and I are boys, man. We go back. Like, imagine all the people who saw Breaking Bad over here and all the people who saw Better Call Saul. They do not feel the same way about this guy. Because now if I watch a scene in Breaking Bad, I'm just going to be thinking, damn, Jimmy, you're better than this. Keep in mind, after watching Breaking Bad, I couldn't even tell you who Jimmy McGill was. And then fast forward just to the first scene of Better Call Saul. You got the monochrome guy working at Cinnabon, and I remember watching that first season and I was just thinking, who the fuck is this? I literally was looking at the main character of the show and I had no idea who this was. And I've always said that the greatest thing a character can do is evolve and change and develop. And we saw that in Breaking Bad with Jesse, and we saw it with Walter. And now we're seeing it with Saul Goodman, Jimmy McGill, Gene, whatever you want to call him. And in Better Call Saul, it's even more interesting because you have Kim Wexler, who is the yang to Saul Goodman's yin. And Kim is swimming parallel to Jimmy throughout this entire show. And that makes everything twice as interesting. Now, when Jimmy is in trouble, I'm now worried for Kim's sake. Or whenever he's making dumb decisions, I'm thinking, oh no, Jimmy, what is Kim gonna think about this? Or when Kim's moving up in the lawyer world or trying to find herself, I'm just thinking, oh, like, how is this gonna impact their relationship? At the start of the show, this felt like two coworkers. They felt like two coworkers who were maybe doing something that they shouldn't be behind the scenes. They rarely showed affection for each other, but you knew that they cared for each other more than anything, just by their actions. And then suddenly that becomes like the backbone of the show, and when they do finally show more affection, it has 10 times the amount of impact because they had not done so prior. And you guys know me, I'm like a manly man's man, and I don't really tear up for shows or movies all that often, but I do have a little notes section on my phone of all the things I've ever teared up to. It's a very short list filled with Final Fantasy X and the Christopher Robin movie. I'm a weird guy. Anyway, not a single time on that list has a romance scene ever made me tear up. It's usually like people who died or big dramatic moments or something. And because Kim isn't around in Breaking Bad, I thought they were gonna do the obvious thing of, oh, she died. Like Jimmy would do something that accidentally got her killed, and then he'd be like, I hate myself so much, I'm just gonna become the devil inside me. I'm gonna become Saul Goodman. And it actually happened in a much more natural way. The moment Kim broke down the relationship and just put into perspective, we're not right for each other. We bring out the worst parts of each other, the things we're not meant to be. And the moment I heard that, it again put everything into perspective. You could immediately see it on Jimmy's face that he's filled with hatred and sadness and disbelief, but you could see a part of him knew that what she was talking about is true, that even though they do both love each other, they just weren't right for each other. And then you have the final scenes of the show with Kim and Jimmy, and a lot of people are a little bit conflicted about it. Some people think it should have done more or should have been more clear and not so artsy-fartsy or whatever. I thought it was great personally. A lot of the show, I like that it's open to interpretation. Like, you never really know the exact reason why Saul Goodman or Jimmy did the things that he did. You don't know why he voluntarily went to prison all of a sudden. And you don't know what Kim and Jimmy are thinking about during these moments. You just kind of read their body language and what they say to each other, what minimal there is, and you make your own interpretation of what took place there. And I love that, man. Because I remember when Breaking Bad ended and some people didn't like it back then. And now it's looked after so fondly because when you watch it now, you do realize, oh, all the plot threads were resolved. These couple moments could have meant this or this, and it's like when you have a beautiful pizza pie and you eat 90% of it, you got one final piece, it's going great so far, but then you dropped it on the floor, your dog picked it up, and you're left thinking, what could have been? What was that last little piece? Like, what was going on there? And that bittersweet feeling is better than actually just getting the pizza. This is a weird metaphor. That's why Kim and Jimmy, they're like one of the most fascinating character study relationships I've seen in a long time. But the interesting thing is that's not even the first time this show did that. It already did that with Jimmy and Chuck. Because when you meet Chuck, he's not a likable guy. He hates Jimmy, he criticizes him, he's a stick in the mud, and he's meant to be the villain. But somewhere inside him, he knows Jimmy better than we do, and he will destroy himself if it means stopping Saul Goodman, who rests within Jimmy's soul. And right when I thought, oh, Chuck was defeated, that was kind of like a weird point in time to have his death. I didn't know how to feel about that. Then they had two scenes in the final season that put that in perspective. The first scene is with Chuck and Jimmy, and Chuck actually seems to try to move the needle forward on his relationship with Jimmy and him. And Jimmy kind of just swats it down and wants to keep the status quo that they want to fight each other. He wants the conflict, and he wants to beat Chuck just as much as Chuck wants to beat Jimmy. It's like the battle between Light and Kira. Yes, I'm using this analogy where they're battling to the end of time, but a part of them loves each other, but they will stop at nothing to defeat each other, even if it means defeating themselves. But one of them won victoriously simply because one played within the confines of the rules and the other one did not. And the other scene I was talking about was the scene between Saul and Walter, where Walter says, "Oh, so you've always been like this." And that's when we finally put the nail in the coffin that yes, a part of Jimmy McGill is broken and cannot be fixed. And that's when his days of conning finally catched up to him. It was just another elderly woman that he was going to take advantage of, and she didn't put up with that shit, and he got caught and landed in prison. And Jimmy was, of course, going to fight tooth and nail to get out of this. He was going to weasel his way through that situation, but he comes around and takes the full brunt of his sins, lays them all out there, and there is nothing I would have loved more than if Chuck was there. Not only to see his brother be defeated, not only to see the look of horror when he realizes the whole judicial system is crashing around him as his brother gets away with his crimes, but also to see the resolution that he put it all out there, manned up, admitted his crimes, and took full responsibility for them. He probably would have been crying. And Chuck knew something that maybe a lot of us didn't the whole time, which is Slippin' Jimmy belongs in prison. And I could go on. This show has so many little detailed moments that you could make analysis videos on. This show is like a YouTube film analysis channel's wet dream. And I still haven't talked about its greatest underdog, Nacho, or how much I cherish seeing some of my favorite characters come back in cameos, how much perspective the show gave me on the world of lawyers and the law, or that Lalo Salamanca is this franchise's second greatest antagonist, obviously only behind Gus, and their showdown was awesome. But I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I had a lot I wanted to get off my chest about this show, but I want to know what you think of it down below. And if you want to tell me if you preferred it over Breaking Bad, I appreciate that as well. Don't be afraid to hit that big red subscribe button if you're new here. And if you enjoyed this video, I have many others on this channel. Look at all these videos. Down there's my channel page. Go on there. Look at all these videos. Press them. Click on my face to your heart's content. And until next time, with that, I leave you.